YouTube comments from a video titled, Gen Alpha Can't Read and Teachers Are Fed Up. Part 9.
Kim of Drac wrote,
Here in Sweden, if you don't learn how to read during first grade age 6 to 7, you have to go through that grade again. Unless you're dyslexic or something.
At Salvador Hernandez 9884 wrote,
I can't read very well because I missed a lot of school to work and help my family. I can read but nothing passes 7th grade level, but other than that, it gets difficult time to time, Rose. But I do try, but man, it sucks.
At Metalhead RX6KS wrote,
I personally do not want kids because of all the responsibilities it takes to be a parent. With that being said, Ithaca white people keep popping out kids just to ignore and neglect them. If you don't think you'd be a good parent, don't have kids. I couldn't imagine being a kid these days when your parents are more concerned about being on TikTok rather than raising you.
At Retro Gaming Wolf 789 wrote,
I'm still working on retail full-time, and let me tell you, the way how modern parents handle their kids is truly expected. Either they're as cell-tie moms with sugar daddies, basic parents with the expression of not caring, and some that don't care for what their kids are doing, like a dog owner letting their aggressive Rottweiler walk without a leash. Not to mention, most of them have their kids watching Cocomelon or YouTube brain rot 24/7 on phones or iPads. But the worst I've seen is parents using the GameStop daycare tactic by leaving their kids at Dave & Buster's. I remember that it's closing time for the mall, and I have an entitled parent demanding that the store I work at open the shutter that's leading back into the mall. But we gave her a reality check that the mall is closed, and there is already officials escorting people out of the building. Then she starts complaining that's the store staff's fault for not entitling her to her needs, even though we told her that there is another way around the building to get to Dave & Buster's. Gotta say, no wonder today's youngsters are truly falling behind with their education.
At the Fairy 6884 wrote,
As a millennial going through her 4th semester towards a PhD, I've seen it on a college level. I can't tell you how many times I've caught classmates playing something on Steam or watching Netflix during lectures, and are shocked to find out they did abysmally on their exams. I've seen students turn to ChatGPT as a search engine and take the Google A overview at face value without verifying whether or not the information is correct. One of my instructors literally gave the answer away for a question, and over 90% of my classmates still got it wrong when called on. College reignited my desire to learn, but that might be because I'm hitting 30 next year and have ADHD, but watching my classmates struggle with the most basic stuff is absolutely heartbreaking. I pray that I'll be able to be a good enough parent towards my hypothetical children to help them thrive academically so they don't end up like this.
At Stuff 9233 wrote,
With what kind of parents expect a teacher to potty train, actually child should be potty trained before going to any public schools. Wow, sorry to hear this. Or don't have kids if you can't take care of basics for your children's.
At Ivanel 6797 wrote,
Capitalism and common sense culture are the issues. 1. Parents are squeezed out of their energy by productivity-obsessed jobs. 2. Platforms monetize attention and are unregulated. 3. Schools are underfunded and overcrowded. 4. Third places have been monetized and erased. 5. Car-centric communities. Root cause.
Jazzed Life wrote,
I had my autistic son potty trained by 4. It was a lot of work, but it got done. I also taught him how to read, and I had to go through a few different methods until I found what worked for him. He is now a very advanced reader. He spells better than his older cousins. It's all hard work, a lot of trial and error to find what works for him, but we aren't letting his different learning needs prevent him from learning. Teach your children people.
Genjin 70 wrote,
We are required to co-construct classroom expectations with the students PK5 in my school, middle and high school also, so the students have ownership and buy into the classroom culture. They also want the teachers to co-construct the lesson objectives. It's a waste of time.
At Ushijima's Magical Garden wrote,
Man teachers already get a minimum salary and have to deal with bad students already. They don't need to babysit your kid, and do things like potty training or teaching them parenting is not on them. That's why we are parents. It's our responsibility to teach them basic life skills.
At Dugendagen 2571 wrote,
There should be a licensing system to have children. There are very few accidental pregnancies. Most are the result of negligence. If someone is so incompetent to use birth control for prevention, they are likely going to be terrible parents. Yes, there are tons of people who step up to the plate, but many of those responsible people spend their children's childhood making sure the kid understands how much they are resented for messing up our life.
At Sherry East 731 wrote,
The system is working as planned. They only want select children being productive citizens. The rest are simply supposed to fill their jails and menial labor to push their profit agendas forward.
At Ewan Diandusen them wrote,
You don't have to ban a book. They can't read IT. True. We are all focusing on outrage within any given topic as opposed to shared value and common ground. Sad world in that sense.
At Sherry East 731 wrote,
Their parents condone and model their behaviours for these kids. If the parents do not teach at home and show kids they don't care about what they learn or how they behave, then you get what we've got.
The Cyclo wrote,
Where I work in a school. If a child isn't potty trained by the age of 5 at most, it is considered neglect and I am required, by law, to report it to CPS.
At the O'Kitty Farm wrote,
Highly intelligent kids suffer having to be held back because it's woke to put intellectually advanced children in a class separate from those who are failing. We should be helping kids who are future inventors, researchers, philosophers, and leaders in an environment where they can excel to their full potential instead of holding them back to make the intellectually inferior think they are equal when they are not.
At the O'Kitty Farm wrote,
Children can't go to school if they can't control their bodily functions. That is a major health risk. If my child got another child's bodily fluids on them, I would sue the school for endangering my child's life. If they destroy computers, etc., well, you break it, you buy it. I'm all for shaming these parents publicly for being intellectually incompetent and totally amoral and nasty. Flunk these kids until they pass.
At Rural Rebeltory 7474 wrote,
I have known that public schools were having issues with kids not wanting to learn for several years. The questions are how to get them to want to learn and put in the work to learn. I do not know those answers. I do know that not all Gen Alpha is like that. Far too many, yes, but not all. I have taught in elementary schools for over 10 years now. I currently teach second grade. The kids in my class and the kids in whole second grade pod work hard and want to learn. Our parents are very involved and supportive. That helps set the tone and helps kids to want to do well. That being said, I grew up going to private schools, K-12. Then while I was in college and did my first teaching labs in public schools, I was shocked at how different the whole atmosphere was. The teachers who we worked with were great hard-working teachers, but even then they talked about the challenges they faced daily. From those first few labs, I learned I wanted to teach in a private school. I have not regretted that decision. I enjoy and look forward to teaching each day and year. Our schools help the kids. They are getting a great education. The more I hear about public schools, the more I worry about those kids and their future. I do not have the answers and am not in any way or form pretending I do. However, I hope educators find those answers, or an extremely large portion of Gen Alpha kids will have great difficulty as an adult.
@LL SQ66rot.
This is a love/hate video. FYI, there is I made teacher material which teaches at times wrong English rules and at times incorrect math in both charter and public NFL, which is bad enough. But the charter AI is woke, degrading, word salad. I personally am invested in this topic. I pay for online school while the kids also go to public school, and I am taking the courses with them, my own grade given, because I don't know everything that is covered. When I unfortunately sent them to a STEM charter the school, it was a political mess. The school refuses to give a working computer for near a month, and teachers do not answer questions sent into them at all. The zeros just pile up. The children are forced into accelerated classes. This translated into missing learning the correct depth of the current year's curriculum. The grades near failing. The STEM charter school boasted it has free tutoring before you enroll, then says you can't use it because too many students are failing worse than your disabled child. At least the public school is not so emotionally manipulative, and there are less physical fights at the public school. The grades at public school were more accurate and reflective of work that was given and taught. Go Florida/Gov DeSantis and public school teachers. In Florida and Orlando, I am so happy that wholesome, real conversations can occur between teachers and parents. I do not like the remnants of the Biden-era garbage in the administration, but the teachers we have this year are truly amazing and loved by us.
@Atmads wrote.
1000% the parent's fault. If you don't do whatever it takes to get your child reading, you are dooming them for the rest of their life.
PDFA7DZ wrote.
When I was a kid, you couldn't even go to kindergarten if you weren't potty trained, unless you were disabled in some way. In fact, you had to be potty trained to go to the glorified babysitter's overpriced organization called preschool. Parenting sure has changed since the 60s.
Plinko84 wrote.
I didn't become a parent because I saw how bad parents were with their own kids. Even in 2000, I saw parents being too busy to read to or help their own kid. Heck, in the 80s when I was a baby, my parents admitted I was left in a room for hours or days because everyone was too busy for a baby. Even back then, we were cooked. Until they make laws to force parents to their job, nothing will change.
@xxthink_gangs wrote.
First and foremost, it's not the teacher's job. These parents should be ashamed. I wouldn't anyone changing my child, let alone have the teacher stop to change them. I saw kids in daycare 5 years old and having to be changed.
@Amigo del Amigo wrote.
Thankful for having a natural liking for reading. My parents spent tons of money on buying my brother and I books as kids. Also, we had a computer as kids and we used it to read and learn. Education starts at home.
@Without Prejudice HT1SG wrote.
Potty training is not on the list, but you have to play the hand you're dealt. School principal or district superintendent has to meet the demands of the children even where the parents fall short. Child is hungry, feed them. Child needs hair done, get it done. Child needs shoes, clothes or school supplies, get it done. Teacher do this silently all the time. However, success of the child is a team sport. In some cases, that has to be done in spite of the parents, and not because of them.
At Replicator 5th wrote,
Parents are mostly to blame. Parents need to teach their kids to value school equipment, and parents need to teach their kids life activities. Bring back shame, Jeebus. I say this as millennial who has seen her brother raise his kids to be self-sufficient and respectful members of Gen Alpha and Gen Z for the older kids.
At Thebron's Manticore wrote,
The Teen 35, I am all for teachers, but at the same time they need to get back to reality. No kid ever wants to be in the classroom. No one cares if you put effort into your classroom. They hate being in the school period.
At Derek Scott 9469 wrote,
Thanks, Mom. Some of my earliest fond memories are of her reading to me and taking me to the library. At 40, I'm still an avid reader. It's opened up my mind to so many fascinating things beyond my ordinary workaday life.
At Official Robin J wrote,
I have wanted to teach forever up until recently. I work in special ed and sometimes in mainstream classes. I am definitely not going to teach. It's only getting worse. Teachers have no control.
At 1_s_cold_chick wrote,
My son was a late potty trainer. Picked it up closer to 4, but he got it. He still has the occasional poop accident, which is normal, but I was in a near panic about him starting school not trained. And we started over a year before he started going on his own. I never would have sent him to school without being potty trained. I was even considering waiting another year, but he picked it up. This is just lazy parenting, and as a millennial, I'm looking at us cuz.
At Riavbella wrote,
I would like some advice from anyone who reads this comment. I have 3 younger siblings, 2 are STEP, who do online school, 2 are in high school, and 1 is in middle school. My concern is that, while they do their work, they use AI and Google to cheat on every assignment and test. I asked each of them if they were concerned for their own education and future, and brought up a possibility of switching to in-person and actually following along with what they're supposed to be learning, as well as catching up to what they have missed over time. The youngest one wants to switch, but only because she wants friends and doesn't care too much about learning and doing work. The oldest one doesn't want to go in person because he doesn't believe he can learn anything with his learning disability. The middle one seems to be the only one who cares about learning, as she has expressed that she only cheats because she doesn't believe she can pass the independent study structure of her online school. The problem is that my parents, mainly my stepdad, encourage them to cheat, and whenever the middle one and I try to bring this topic up, they always bring up how something bad could happen to them if they were to go in person. Also, since one step sibling wants to go in person and the other doesn't, I guess it would be too difficult for my stepdad and their mom to figure out how they would stay at both houses for an equal amount of days. I don't know how I can bring up the serious problems that can occur as a result of my siblings cheating their way through school and not knowing the importance of learning. I don't want this for them. What can I do?
At Sequoia Freeman 7195 wrote,
What's so sad and mind-boggling to me is the fact that when you look at other countries, especially underdeveloped ones, they don't have this type of freedom. Just something as simple as trying to get to school can actually be dangerous. America has definitely gotten too comfortable, and yes, I say America because the fact that we have countries that are super poor and eager to learn, but also countries that are highly developed but use technology for its purpose is really saying something. As a kid with a single mom of 3 with chronic anxiety and dyslexia as a kid, despite having such a hard time, my mom still made sure to sit with us every night on what we were doing. She would not only read to us, but actually come up with good bedtime stories. At this point, it seems like a lot of Americans are just having kids to have kids, Please stop making them if you don't want responsibility.
A DTI 5 UV wrote.
As a former childcare teacher, I've witnessed challenging situations. It's my observation that some parents seem to misunderstand the role of educators. As a mother of two, I've prioritized early childhood development, including potty training and pre-literacy skills. I actively participate in my children's education and overall development, and maintain a strong relationship with their school staff. My commitment stems from a deep love for my children and a desire to provide them with the best possible foundation. While I strive for excellence, I am also present and engaged in their lives.
At MAF_Sovereignty wrote.
1422, that made me remember what was in my school. To begin with, I consider myself a millennial, although I'm very close to Gen Z, but those classifications differ a little between the countries, so I relate to the experience of my millennials so much more than to the Gen Z experience. That's why I think so. So let's say I'm in between. As a child, I remember liking learning new things and remember not really liking to attend school in the same time. So studying and being in the classroom are two completely different things. But as I grew older and classes started to get more boring, since we aren't little kids anymore, and that apparently means we shouldn't be entertained anymore, I started to lose interest in studying too. So the most interesting it was when the teacher actually tried to make it interesting. And in most cases they were not because they don't really have to. This takes extra time from their free time. And they want to have their lives too. It's normal. So I guess in a lot of cases I were preferring to just do nothing. When it was possible, I was on my phone. When it was not, I was sitting in boredom, maybe doodling in my notebook and doing nothing. The funny thing is that I preferred actually solving some things, like maybe tests, maybe something else, but, doing something, and when we had to just listen to whatever, that's when you lost me. So yes, I understand this. We don't want to do anything and be rather on our phones. I don't understand completely ignoring actually interesting stuff that the teacher prepared for you. That is basically a direct insult to the teacher.
A sitting_frog wrote.
Australian mum of 3 children, 26, 24, and 11 boys. I bought books they were interesting to them. I still have 2 gun books with the history and specs that I bought for the eldest, which have been used, dog-eared, and worth the money, invested hardcover, expensive. My youngest and myself were called into the office with a WW2 book with tanks, weapons, used medical knowledge found from Combat Injuries Act, after being told to bring in a book they enjoy. I got told it was inappropriate. History is inappropriate, apparently.
A Slanish74 wrote.
It's the 80-20 rule playing out. 80% of the work is done by 20% of the population. The majority of people are incompetent because they have bad parents. The cycle is inevitable to repeat. One cannot make people care about their kids' future. They either do or they don't.
At a Darkus 4053 wrote.
And that kid that has dyslexia that couldn't read until they were 12, whose parents spent thousands of dollars on getting me the proper support services I needed. I have gone through so many iterations of support to become the person I am today. It was clear from the testing that my language comprehension was miles beyond my reading capability. I am currently starting my master's in global supply chain with plans to create a dual master's degree track for myself. I did my undergrad and I'm doing my master's with absolutely no support services through my university because I made the decision that I did not need to do that. My 1-year certificate and 2-year associates I did with support because I needed it at that time. I recognize that there are people who have disabilities far greater than my own, but one should never use a disability as a reason to knock themselves out of potential capability. As somebody who is also a trained educator, reading to your children and having your children see you, consistently reading a book, a real physical book, and discussing that book with them is critical.
The decisions you make in the first 3 to 4 years of a child's life has drastic consequences for the rest of their lives.
Calendil wrote,
I love books. I love to read and write. And since the moment my daughter was born, I read her different kinds of books. At some point, when she started learning how to read, she became a little lazy and didn't want to do it. So we went by one page, she and one myself. And now at 9 years old, she is an avid reader. I found books about children becoming animals that she loved them so much that already finished the first and the second one. She read them in 2 days. I need to set apart money for books and I can't be happier. But it was something that I pushed. And now I am so happy when she chooses a book over the table/TV.
Pastelienza wrote,
The difference with your mom being a single mom and having a hard time raising you as that man who was a teacher. With the dreads, the difference is your mom could read the reason these mothers and fathers are getting mad about having to read to their kids for 30 minutes in order to help them learn how to read is because they themselves cannot read.
At Stephen James 5874 wrote,
Dude, this is millennials being pieces of shit like boomers. Some Gen Z suck, but no more than Gen X had its share. Millennials and boomers pretty bad overall. Bootstraps logic and Frappuccino skinny jeans.
Ecoricognitions wrote,
This is everybody's problem. If your kids can't read or engage in critical thinking, they also can't fill out job applications, critically analyze media, recognize manipulation or abuse, send read emails, fill out medical forms, read signs and menus, etc. And it all contributes to the general feeling of people being stupider nowadays.
Gums wrote,
I recently moved from the USA to Ireland, and the difference I noticed in parenting and child behavior is staggering. I haven't seen a single child watching a video on a phone or iPad while out in public. I've noticed a lot more active attention from parents. Not just mothers, but fathers too. But, I think parents having actual mandated leave when having a child helps. And you don't need 5 jobs to have a family here, so parents have more time.
At NCXXC8F wrote,
We need to start treating social media as a drug. It is designed to be addictive, and we've known its harmful effects for decades. If I ever have kids, they're getting a flip phone until they graduate from high school.
Atlanatod PN1YG wrote,
Children that can't read according to their level have negligent parents. If they were even a little involved with their education, it would be caught, and the child can get extra work or a tutor. Do parents not care? Obviously not.
At Richard Alvarado IC9BR wrote,
Maybe the answer is to start K-12 as grade 2 to 20 instead. Many adults just aren't CUTOUTTOBE leaders, AND teachers, whether it's teaching, parenting, or being a manager at a job. WHO ever said life HASTOBE over IFYO UDO and graduate from HSORGET a degree BY22? What's wrong with buying your first house at 35 instead of 28 or getting married at 31 instead of 27? Life ISWA why more complicated NOW than IN teach E1930s 50s in the 60s.
At Ben Fortier wrote,
Great video. I don't understand why a chest height table is in the frame though. It creates a claustrophobic feeling. Almost like you're hiding something that you've yet to reveal. I was expecting you to use it to place props on it or something. Could you explain why it's in the frame in that way?
At AJ_Southern Gal wrote,
In observing young people becoming parents, it's my opinion that parenting courses need to be mandatory. Parents need to understand not only HOW to teach their kids the basics, but to know the benchmarks to meet at every developmental stage. I fear for the youth.
Paper Doll Witch wrote,
I was just randomly think that Gen Alpha seems to be in the era where the people who want to have kids and raise them well is becoming fewer and fewer, while the ones who don't want to be parents and have kids is becoming core and more. Like the potty training thing. If I don't know how to show someone how, I'm either asking my parent that's still around or I'll look it up and teach it to my kid don't have one. I know there isn't a book on how to raise a kid, but it feels like there should be like at age X the kids should know how to use a toilet.
At Carlos Romero YZ7ZK wrote,
Millennials are Gen A's parents. Have you looked up their test scores for millennials? There's your reason. Gen A is worthlessly stupid because millennials are worthlessly stupid. Not hard to understand.
At Carlos Romero YZ7ZK wrote,
You don't actually believe a decent chunk of gens can read or do basic math, do you? Dumbest generations ever produced by the USA. Millennials, Gen Z, and now Gen A. Worthlessly stupid generations.
At Charlene Miller 7059 wrote,
It's not just teachers, it's parents too. Both sides are responsible for kids not learning. There are a ton of parents not parenting. It makes it harder for those of us that do care about helping our kids. There are also a ton of teachers who don't teach. They spend more focus on certain kids with behavioral issues, and the kids that do want to learn lose out. My son's teacher was claiming my son was being disruptive in class. So I found out he was completing his work quickly and was getting disruptive from boredom. I told him to pull out a book and read. So he did. Then the teacher took the book away, telling him that was not the lesson. I sent more challenging work for him to do after getting his classwork done, so he could focus on something. The teacher took the extra work away and claimed that we had to be considerate of the feelings of the other kids who may not be as fast to get their work done. Every time I tried to provide the supports that the teacher asked for, it was always met with her telling me I had to think of how other kids would feel for whatever reason. I was constantly reminding her that I had only one child in her class that I cared about. Education has changed so much to coddle the weakest students, and it ends up making the smarter ones not care because they are not being challenged or encouraged to work hard.
At Lucky Stars 881 wrote,
Yes, distraction by tech is a big problem. A&D. The current economic conditions truly make one-on-one time with a child a daunting feat. I am speaking as a teacher, not a parent. The village should also be looking into sponsored extracurriculars, supplementing low-income families so they can quit their second or third jobs to be able to spend time with young readers. I have no kids. I am exhausted from surviving for myself. I struggle to believe parental laziness is the primary culprit here when there used to have to be ads on TV to remind parents to check on their kids. A lot has changed, and some of it is bad parenting, and we are all responsible for looking at all contributing factors to that.
At Sarah Cohen 3844 wrote,
I'm in New York City. The little kids read and do arithmetic by kindergarten. It's the older kids who seem to be passing despite repeated grades of zeros. If they do a little work at all, it seems to be an improvement.
At Primary Procedures 2289 wrote,
My child had to be potty trained to start preschool at 3 years old. Crazy how public education doesn't have some type of regulation like this. Teachers can't teach academics when students' basic needs aren't being met at home.
At Marie Caroline 33 wrote,
In France, kindergarten starts as early as 2,5 years old, so some kids aren't quite potty trained when they start. However, they're expected to be potty trained a few months into the school year, and it's their parents' responsibility to teach them.
My eldest wasn't perfectly potty trained when he started, so he did have a few accidents at the beginning of the year, but he knew how to dress himself and had a change of clean clothes in his backpack in case it was needed. He's now 5.5 and hasn't had a problem in ages. My youngest is 15 months and already participating in undressing herself. She'll be perfectly capable of putting her own coat and shoes by the time she goes to school. I hope she'll be potty trained by then, and I'm going to do my best as a mother to make sure she is. A 5-year-old in diapers during the daytime is concerning. At night, some children might still need a diaper, but absolutely not during the day. Except if a child has developmental delays because of a mental or physical disability, of course.
At Cat E9976 wrote,
I'm sorry if your kid is not potty trained by 3 and that's pushing it. There's a problem. Stop babying them. Let them wet themselves, they'll quickly learn. It's not hard to ick why so many parents act like it's some big task. Also stop co-sleeping with your kids. And while I'm at it, if your child isn't walking by 18 months, also a big problem.
As OMBIatreats wrote,
I refuse to call them Generation Alpha. Like whose bright idea was that? A more accurate description would be Generation iPad or TikTok or even Generation Wall-E. These kids are literally cooked. They have no hope. All they care about is TikTok and social media likes. It's really sad and actually scary for what that means for the future.
At Tamergrocker 7677 wrote,
Only $70? I have so much to say, but don't feel I can comment professionally. However, the other day, as a regular citizen, I was shopping in Walmart. In one of the aisles, a dad stopped his cart mid-shopping and was texting on his phone, totally immersed, while his child, maybe 4 or 5 years old, was sitting the cart on a phone playing a game. Sort of reminded me of the Next Generation Star Trek episode The Game. Sad, as there is so much you can teach your kid while shopping, even just talking to your child.
At Darkselenvoy 932 wrote,
I need teachers to stop downplaying the low pay. Nothing is more important than ensuring you can pay your bills. No matter how much you love teaching, if you're worried about getting to your second job on time, or if you can keep your lights on, you cannot be fully present as a teacher.
At Zawarudo 1041 wrote,
Lady, please, we as parents didn't sign up for grown UP person using TikTok. This is extremely red flag in education sector. 245 I question your purpose and ability to educate if you are using TikTok.
At S1163 wrote,
Parents don't know how to read. It's coming from Generation X on down. Gen Z, and no one is reading. So don't speak well either, because don't read.
At S1163 wrote,
Why we have a critical thinking disaster in America and how people fall for cults. It is child neglect. Agree. Use contraceptives. They do not need to have children.
At CrazyDoglety 1286 wrote,
I think it's intentional. Once robotics/AI takes over most jobs, it's easier to control an ignorant population. You aren't going to fight for what you don't know and aren't able to learn.
At ABAB 9622 wrote,
In the 90s, reading books was a popular thing to do, especially if it was a popular series like Goosebumps, Animorphs, Babysitter's Club, Nancy Drew, Harry Potter later, too. Now, it's nothing wild.
At Vital Herbalist wrote,
As a Gen Z person growing up in the 2010s,
I find it very saddening that my cohort was some of the last few to go through school before AI. I have struggled with learning disabilities, dysgraphia, and level 1 autism, and it made school very difficult. But even then, by the time I was in 3 ed grade 1, became fluently literate. Math and writing have always been a struggle, but I still managed. What I'm trying to convey, though, is that despite the barriers, I still succeed, and it was because of my mother and my teachers. Parents need to be diligent in making sure that their kids are set up for success and not failure, even with AI, iPads, and whatever. Kids can still succeed as long as they have parents who are willing to put in the effort. Gen Alpha are being set up for failure because they are being neglected.
At HRD Corsymphony wrote,
If they have to dumb down the curriculum for your child, then my child is affected too. The system doesn't take into account those who are doing well because they are meeting the quota and helping boost the lower half of the class. But what does that do for, and how does it affect my child? Boredom, anxiety, and less interest in her school and schoolwork because it's no longer a challenge nor motivational.
At Sleeping Rabbit 4011 wrote,
Been to the movies a couple of times, and I've seen people watching Instagram or TikTok videos while watching the movie, and these aren't kids. These are people probably in their 50s.
At Tinnerigman 1373 wrote,
Not potty trained and probably still using a binky. So sad for those kids. Wait until we hit the 1984 era. Those people won't stand a chance against the machine. We won't be able to fight it if we aren't well educated. This is what they've been setting up for a good 100 years. May the odds be ever in your favor.
At Winged Cat Person 3243 wrote,
Both myself and my daughter were out of diapers by 3. I've noticed young parents, 20s to early 30s, having 3 to 4 kids, and all of them up to 6 years old are wearing diapers. W.
At CHKN 6385 wrote,
Well, if the parents are part of the village, they would want to help teachers be as successful as they can into getting through the annual curriculum so as to have their children potty trained prior to the start of the school year. It's amazing how selfishly excuse-driven people have become.
As Cyberverse wrote,
Shout out to my sister and brother-in-law. They read to their kids every night. I get to read to them too. They aren't in school yet, but her and her husband are making sure they will be ready. No iPads, lots of toys, lots of outdoor activities. They complain like kids do, so when they need to clean up after themselves, we help them clean up a little and teach them how to clean in small lessons of responsibility. One is potty trained and excited to use the big boy toilet. The other is still in diapers. She loves being outside and trying to keep up with Big Bro. She and husband play games together on the Xbox 360 sometimes, but you'll usually catch them playing with the kids, doing fun projects with them, and working hard at their jobs. We are elder millennials. She is 38, a year and a half older than me. I love seeing how she raises those kids. Inevitably, they will get phones and get into TikTok or whatever it will be then. But the way they dedicate time to these kids will be huge in combating the brain rot, and hopefully give some teachers some joy and happiness teaching our kids. My mom read to us while we were in her womb, and if I have kids, I'm going to raise them the same way.
Anik25 wrote,
1324. This all comes back to the parents to me. I remember those kids who would ruin it for the rest of us in the class. Your child not paying attention to learn is on you as the parent, of course, omitting actual issues preventing the child from doing that.
Atrini77 wrote,
My mom, a daycare operator, assisted with potty training. Kids were typically potty trained by age 3. Any older indicated development issues or health issues. Nothing she did was without parent direction agreement.
Adanagelima7308 wrote,
Why would any parent want any adults in their child's literal pants for any reason? Is this not a real personal safety issue for the child? And a massive legal liability for the educator?
At Foxfire Farms 1514 wrote,
I thought I was going crazy. With my kid choosing not to use the potty around the age of 2, she's now 3 and fully potty trained. But I thought that was a problem. My goodness.
Akai 4761 wrote,
Why doesn't the state require potty training by kindergarten? Because if it's not mandatory, does the state want you to? I get the overall response and reasoning with the topic, however. Why wouldn't you require it? If no one in the school system can help with potty training, just make it mandatory.
At Material Dialectics wrote,
I'm sure this has been said a billion times by now, but why the fuck are kids not potty trained by kindergarten? I was potty trained by the age of I don't know 2 or 3 years at the very latest. And I was generally not the quickest on the uptake when it came to many things as a kid.
At Wild by Nature 6779 wrote,
While I agree with your overall sentiments here, I feel it should be noted that kids are different and learn different skills at different times. My first child learned to read at 3, not exaggerating. He was sounding out 10 platter words in Smithsonian books about trains. My second is 7 and only just starting to make noticeable progress with his reading. Maybe I just get a little sensitive when parents are criticized when their child isn't doing X by Y age, because it's so evident with my own children that 90% of it is down to individual differences, since I did the exact same things with both of them.
Donnell Weaver wrote,
How embarrassing that a parent hasn't potty trained their child. I would say the children's services need to call that lack of leadership and responsibility for your children the 100% child neglect and abuse.
At Tiffany Black 2667 wrote,
I have a 2-year-old with autism. I work on potty training daily, and I read to her daily. I realize that it's going to take a lot more time and effort because she's on the spectrum, and I'm willing to do what needs to be done. I can't understand parents that have normal kids and they aren't potty trained and don't know ABS and 123S by kindergarten.
At Alendi Hollander 7684 wrote,
You mean that social distancing kids for years in their developmental years has a negative effect on their socialization? We did that. We made them grow up that way. We made those choices where we knew better. So we all have deal with the consequences. You want to blame someone? Take a look within. If you isolate kids and make them bond with screens and AI, you really can't be surprised that they don't read books or don't know how to wipe themselves. So we will have to help them fix the shit that we caused, because we let Big Pharma rest of sentence will be censored by YouTube anyways, so why bother writing it out?
At Redneck69 24 wrote,
As a junior in high school, I have noticed that a lot of kids go on their phone and some even make the teacher constantly tell them to be quit, like every minute. I also noticed that teachers aren't trying really hard, and that made me literally have 0 homework this year. It's kinda sad to go to a school where no one really cares anymore.
At This Job is Cheeks wrote,
I am honestly disappointed with how often I see parents not teaching their own children outside of school. Please stop giving them loads of screen time and instead try to make learning exciting for them and give them fun experiences outside of a screen. Because frankly, if you keep letting these children stay isolated in their rooms doom scrolling on TikTok or YouTube, they will most likely never get a job or make it in life. Teachers don't need to be dealing with your B4LLSH1T because you can't take care of your own child. I envy this IS coming from a G in Alpha because I am seeing my 4-year-old brother steal my PS5 and know how to use it. This is honestly so sad, and I feel bad that parents can't take 30 minutes out of their life to go teach their own children. No, I didn't write this because of the PS5. I wrote this because my brother's head is filled with so much brain rot, and my parents failed him so much to the point he needs speech therapy and can only say brain rot words right.
And Nerdy Panda TD1TZ wrote,
It's the teachers, though. My parents were immigrants who didn't speak or read English for years after they immigrated to Canada. I learned English at school maybe if teachers spent more time on reading comprehension rather than ideology. Kids wouldn't be illiterate and dumb.
At Lexa Bernhardt 8307 wrote,
In my opinion, the problem is the adults. The kids are, well, kids. They are reliant on the adults in their lives to set an example of expectations, and it's not happening. If it's just the millennial/Gen Z generation's mindset, and yes, I'm a millennial, and obviously it's not a blanket statement. But clearly it's a big enough issue that it's a widespread problem on parenting, or like you said, just needing to grow up. But it's 100% to blame on adults, including teachers. I know they are trying their best, but my son's third grade teacher told me the other day that he wasn't participating and she offered him to sit in the corner with a pillow for a break. I was shocked. My son was disciplined when he got home, and I told her she's a lot nicer than me because he does not need a pillow, he needs to focus. I then set the expectation of appropriate behavior in the classroom to my son and what the consequences would be if I find out the behavior is continuing.
At Jamie Marriage 98 wrote,
442 in some places it definitely is considered neglect, and you can be reported to CPS and investigated for not having your kids potty trained properly. I had it happen to a family friend with their 3-year-old in 2016. 3 still seemed young to call it neglect per se, at least to me. But still, it's a thing that can happen.
TB85 wrote,
This is why I left teaching after 11 years of this bowl. I love teaching, but being a teacher was unbearable. The politics, paperwork, pay, and parents got me the heck out of there.
At Dr. Oreos wrote,
My kid is 3, and she started preschool, and one of the requirements is that she is potty trained. Now, if she wasn't, she would have to go into a pepper class, which is an extra $100 a month. In general, I wanted to teach my daughter how to use the potty not only because she started school preschool, but blowing $100 a month on diapers and wipes is costly. I wish she could use the toilet at 6 months old.
At Itsumi 3K wrote,
I blame the school. They are way too relaxed. My teenager is running amok at school, and I constantly have asked the school to be more harsh in their punishment. All I got was a behavior contract.
At Boxing 388 wrote,
The problem is that Cocomelon does not have the ability to physically put the kid on the toilet. Streaming services are responsible for raising much of the population. We just need to figure out how to get Cocomelon to provide absolute parental love and guidance.
At Der Kaiser 420 wrote,
Kindergarteners can't use the toilet. Are you serious? In the 90s, my teacher in kindergarten forgot how to tie her shoes. So we had to learn that, let alone putting my pants on or taking a dump in the toilet.
At Aroma Blue wrote,
This is so true. As a former middle and high school teacher and college professor, I had so many students that either could not read or write or could do it, but at the level of a 7 to 10 years old. And the parents. They are the main culprits. Many are entitled, rude, or downright neglectful.
At Misty Barker Kaufman Joe 8RT wrote,
Wait. What? Why the hell aren't they trained when they're 3? That's when I trained mine, honestly. It's as simple as taking their diaper off during the summer months so they're aware when they're outside playing that they're using the bathroom. It made it easier for me anyway. Of course, with all the perverts and pedophiles now, you'd have to have a privacy fence and everything else to boot.
At Ricci8497 wrote,
Screams of, "Oh, I'm a parent, but teaching and raising my own child is a problem for someone else to deal with. And why should I do the core work with child SMH? By the time I started school, I had reading skills, I had the core foundation of mathematics already in place for the school to then further work on, and this should be the normal baseline for most children entering school."
At Omikit Videos wrote,
I am half French, half Spanish with Irish roots. I am shocked in the worst possible way by how professionals are generally treated in America. They force you to do things that are clearly not your problem, they make you work longer hours, you take your work home with you. It makes me sad. The world should be more balanced.
At Lil Hedgehog 8576 wrote,
LMAO, it is not harsh to tell a student to leave the classroom. That happened to me multiple times. You just sit there in the hallway, waiting to come back in unless you were told to go to the principal's office.
At Lil Hedgehog 8576 wrote,
Why are people having kids and then trained to pawn their kids off to the teachers like be a damn parunt or Donnie be one at all make up your goddamn mind? You can't eat your cake and have it too. Once it's gone, it's gone. Are you gonna be like Patrick Star and get mad that SpongeBob has a chocolate bar?
A Jen official wrote,
I was able to read by kindergarten. I'm gonna make sure my kids grow up learning everything I did and parenting them the way my parents raised me, and they won't get any device till high school. And we'll have a home computer for their studies and homework.
At Eternal Student 7461 wrote,
Wow. This is what we get for making newborns go from infant to kindergartner, skipping the preschooler age completely. I don't blame any teacher for standing their ground about not changing diapers or cleaning poopy pants. We have enough creepy adults wanting to behave inappropriately with children.
At Dulciadap 9716 wrote,
Too many excuses/laziness. My dad, who did not finish middle school, taught me how to read and write by the age of 5. He worked about 50 hours a week during that time. Of course, my reading/writing wasn't perfect, but I was ahead. I'm also not saying that your kids should be ahead, but they should be up to par.